Hi everybody, so we have no flag review today, but in its place we're going to be doing more bad political ads. This is kind of transformed from bad political ads to me just judging political ads, so there's no guarantee that the ads we're going to see today are bad, except one, because I've seen it already, and it's this one, the Kanye West ad. It's got everybody, and it seemed like the perfect time to do another one of these. I'm probably not going to be doing another one of these bad political ad things for this season unless we get a really bad one in the next several days. I don't think anything else could inspire me to do another one. So this is going to be the last one. And we are doing third-party ads. In the spirit of Kanye's weird third-party write-in campaign that he's doing right now, I thought this would be just perfect. So I'm excited. This should be fun. Let's see what Kanye West has to say.
America. What is America's destiny? What is best for our nation, our people? What is just, true justice? We have to think about all these things together as a people. To contemplate our future, to live up to our dream, we must have vision.
Okay, first of all, I've seen other people's reactions to this, so I'm not the first person to say it, but plenty of people have pointed out that he's kind of staring off into the distance in a way. It kind of gives off this this I'm so important sort of vibe. It's weird because he's going for the thing where he's trying to talk directly to the people, but the way he presents himself visually is so distant. You know what I'm trying to say here? I feel like if he's trying to do this thing where he's trying to make it so personal and like right in the people's face, talk to the camera. I think it's okay in this case. A lot of TV doesn't like it when you talk directly to the camera, but this is one of the exceptions, this sort of format.
We as a people will revive our nation's commitment to faith, to what our Constitution calls the free exercise of religion, including, of course, prayer. Through prayer, faith can be restored. We as a people are called to a greater purpose than ourselves. We are not only a beacon to the world, but we should be servants to each other, to encourage each other, to help each other, to lift up each other, our fellow Americans, that we may all prosper together. We have to act on faith.
You know what? Somebody pointed this out. I don't remember who. Him looking off may not just be a pretentious thing. He might be reading. Because he comes off like he's reading a little bit. There's a difference between when somebody memorizes something and when somebody's reading something. I just get a different sort of presentation here, but I don't know for sure. Obviously, I wasn't there to see the behind-the-scenes thing, but it comes off very much like he's reading. Let's wrap this up, and I'll give you my thoughts on more the content of the ad after.
With the sure knowledge that we are pursuing the right goals and doing the right things, we will build a stronger country by building stronger families. Families are the building blocks of society, of a nation. By turning to faith, we will be the kind of nation, the kind of people
Just got louder
God
for some reason.
intends us to be. I am Kanye West, and I approve this message.
He has this interesting approach where he's really going down the religious route. That's the sort of language, the sort of imagery he's going for. Kanye seems like he's always been kind of religious, but he seems like he's like getting even more into religion, and it's an interesting approach. Let's take this strategically. Kanye naturally has a young audience. I don't know how dedicated that audience is to voting for him, but his approach actually is rather conservative, and it reaches out to people who are probably more already in the Trump camp, so I don't know who he's appealing to. It's kind of confusing. Because maybe he's taking young people for granted and he thinks, well, I have young fans. Young people are going to vote for me. Duh. I got them on lock. Now I got to appeal to the old people. Or maybe Kanye isn't really thinking that deep into it. Honestly, it's pretentious. He very for lack of a better term. He comes off as very holier than thou. He talks a whole lot without really giving you any sort of idea as to what sort of policies he's in favor for or against. Like, I don't really know what Kanye wants. Unless he's actually talking about implementing prayer as, like, a policy, he's not giving me really anything to work with. Like, the religious stuff, it's fine. You're trying to pander to that community a little bit. It's kind of your thing right now. But you're not really giving even them all that much to chew on, except, I don't know, it comes off as very pandery. I obviously didn't like this ad going into it, so I'm giving it a thumbs down. I think visually it's got some strong stuff going for it. It's just Kanye is the least interesting thing about it visually. I just look at him and he seems so out of place. The visuals are actually very strong otherwise. It's well put together, obviously. There's somebody doing this that really knows their stuff. But then there's Kanye staring off in the distance, and I don't really get it. Strategically, just alone, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't see who this is going to persuade. You gotta say more if you want to change people's minds, especially in such a radical sense that you doing a write-in campaign where you're not even on the ballot in so many places. You need to really inspire people, and if you talk to yourself for nearly a minute and a half and don't say anything policy-wise, you're not going anywhere. I never took Kanye's political stuff all too seriously. He always came off as like he was kind of faking it. Like, no matter which side he was on, I couldn't really feel all that much towards it, because it felt like he was kind of playing a part and doing what he felt he was supposed to, but like he didn't take the time to really understand the issues he was talking about. He speaks from the gut. That's in true Kanye fashion. So honestly, I can't even be mad at him for whatever he does, because I honestly kind of feel for him. That's just me. And I love the first 3 albums very much. So you can't take that away from me. All right, let's check out the next third-party ad. I think that's Jorgensen. I call her Jorgensen sometimes, but it's Jorgensen. Okay, so Joe Jorgensen is the Libertarian candidate, and I'm always interested in what the Libertarians have. I don't know how well they would do this time around. There's always Libertarian types, but honestly, people want the government to be very active right now. They want them to be very decisive. I don't know if people are generally saying the free market has to work this out. We're in a very precarious situation for libertarians. They really got to sell themselves hard on this one. So if it's a good ad, it's a good ad. But I'm very curious to see how they work out in this election. Let's see what you got.
Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Joe Jorgensen's America.
In Joe's America, marijuana is now safe and legal.
The drug war is over, and all non-violent drug offenders have been pardoned.
Big corporations no longer receive bailouts and subsidies.
In Joe Jorgensen's America, the troops come home to be with their families.
Libertarians always have this sort of appeal here. There's kind of crossover. They have a little bit in the conservative camp, a little bit in the liberal camp. Like they're very hands off on the social issues, where a lot of Republicans are still kind of like the moral police. Libertarians tend to take their hands off on that, and I think that's really cool, and that will naturally appeal to people. Let me go back for just a second here. It was right here.
Big corporations no longer receive bailouts and subsidies.
That's probably going to be huge here. That's actually something that in the pandemic we're probably really going to be thinking about, because right at the beginning, what do the politicians do? They immediately run to protect corporations and protect the big people, and now everybody's thinking like, what about us? And while the libertarians aren't really for handing out checks to everybody, they could say, yeah, we weren't in favor of that though. We weren't in favor of just cutting a check to corporate America like that. And I think that's a pretty good point to lead on during the pandemic.
In Joe Jorgensen's America, the troops come home to be with their families.
Police are held accountable because qualified immunity is gone.
Our healthcare system finally sees real competition and falling prices.
I wasn't sure how she felt about qualified immunity. That's kind of the one thing that makes it very difficult to prosecute police officers that abuse their power. It's complicated, and you should probably go to somebody who knows a little bit better about that. But I wasn't sure how Jorgensen would rule on that. So she's for throwing it out, which is leaning a little bit more in the liberal camp on that one, as far as like mainstream politics goes.
To keep your paycheck.
America has cut up the proverbial credit card instead of leaving the bill for future generations.
You can buy affordable birth control over the counter. The crony system of our...
And that'll appeal to women. This is a good ad. I'm just saying, like, you go from the last one where Kanye doesn't seem very focused. He didn't really talk about a single issue. He brings up prayer in like this vague sense, but you never get a sense of what he's going to do. Jorgensen, I think her message is very clear, and I think that will definitely resonate with people.
Occupational licensing is being torn down.
Cutting hair without a license is no longer a crime. You're finally free.
You're finally free. It's time for Joe Jorgensen's America.
It's time for real change.
For real people.
Just
Say
Joe.
I'm Dr. Joe Jorgensen, and I approve this message.
I think that was a very good ad. I'm considered libertarian left. That should not be, I guess, confused for libertarian in general, because that leans a little bit more extreme than myself. But I can definitely sympathize, and I think she's leading with the right issues. There are some things that people could take her on, and they'll ask her about how she feels about masks or whatever, or what should the government do to stop the spread of the pandemic, because it's really difficult when you're like the no government person, and the free market isn't just going to get rid of the pandemic overnight. That's just one of those things. So she has that, but she really focused on the things that are really going to work for her. So I think this was a solid ad. Probably one of the best ads that I've seen on this series so far. It's very much on message, and it all really favors her pretty darn well. Even the things that people may like raise their eyebrow at are communicated in a way that really works. Like, she doesn't talk about like deregulating that much, even though that's pretty much what she wants to do. But she frames it in a way that sounds totally reasonable, and most people would be like, yeah. And there are plenty of people who are totally down with deregulating as well, but like the way it's communicated is very good. So yeah, solid ad, Jorgensen. You're on one. I wasn't sure what to expect here with these third party people. I expected it's going to be quite diverse, but at least interesting. I'm not expecting any boring ads, so that's good. Let's see what we got. So the next ad we have is Howie Hawkins, who is the Green Party candidate, while the Libertarians are often the answer to people who don't think Republicans are really conservative enough or consistent enough. The Green Party is kind of that answer on the left, while the Democrats actually try to present themselves as more centrist. The Green Party is unapologetically liberal. So this should be fun. Howie Hawkins is an interesting dude. I follow him on Twitter, and he's got some very interesting takes. See, I don't think his marketing is all that good, though. I think Jorgensen's marketing, from what I've seen, seems to be a little better. So I'm not sure what to expect from Howie, but let's see what we got.
Hello, I'm Howie Hawkins, the nominee of the Green Party for president. I'm running with Angela Walker, an activist and powerful advocate for change.
Oh yeah, I have to emphasize here that not all of these are like traditional ads because naturally their resources vary or whatever, and they may not actually get their ads on TV. A lot of these things, I'm sure, might only appear on the internet or whatever. But yeah, but this is labeled as an ad, so I'm assuming this seems like the best one I was able to go with, and it's going after Joe Biden, which I think is interesting.
Together, we have taken up the progressive policy mantle once carried by Bernie Sanders, the same mantle that was tossed aside by Joe Biden. Biden opted for more conservative policies that have hurt working class people for decades. Biden, who pushed the Trans-Pacific Partnership and virtually every other disastrous trade policy, which sold off American manufacturing and devastated white-collar jobs as well. Biden, who pushed for Wall Street deregulation and massive cuts for the wealthy.
This visually is decent. It's not outstanding by any means, but the voiceover and the visuals just don't feel like they match. Like, they had somebody who was pretty good at the visual stuff, but they didn't have like a real audio engineer for this stuff, and they just tried to do it on their own, and that makes it feel a little disconnected. Like, this voiceover and the visuals don't necessarily match up very well. He's going after Joe Biden, which actually makes total sense, because Joe Biden, he feels that he's taking liberal votes but not implementing liberal policy. So naturally, Joe Biden, more than Donald Trump, is actually the obstacle for a liberal party. Because there are so many Trump voters that Howie's not going to be able to get to. But there are liberal Joe Biden voters. There are people who are voting for Joe Biden who are far more liberal than Joe Biden. And I think that's what Howie's trying to reach out to. So it makes sense. I get the strategy. He's just going to get the Jill Stein treatment, unfortunately. They're going to just completely discredit him because, like, if you go outside the two-party system, oh no, you're basically voting for Trump. I don't know.
For horrific wars like the war in Iraq, he is truly no friend of working people. Our campaign supports Medicare for all.
Like, these visuals are good.
College opportunity for all. Ending the drug wars. And stopping this new, insane nuclear arms race, which is a life or death threat to all of us. Our platform champions criminal justice reform, a new vision that would see justice and accountability in our legal systems. Joe Biden wrote the crime bills, championed the policies that locked up African Americans for small amounts of marijuana. Biden's record on criminal justice has been hidden by the mainstream media.
You know what I think would be good? And I think Howie could take some notes from the Jorgensen ad. I think he should have had other people talk about Joe Biden. I honestly think, although it's important to have a charismatic leader at the forefront of a party, it really gives them something to latch onto. I think having, I guess, the movement pushed ahead of the candidate, I think that is much better for what the third parties are trying to accomplish. Many of them are not actually planning on winning. Surprising, right? But yeah, to push the movement ahead of the person, I think, is very valuable. And I think that's what Jorgensen's ad did well. It didn't put her at the forefront. It talked more about the issues that matter to the Libertarian Party. And I think if you have pretty much the same ad, maybe a little bit more concise, and have other people do little testimonial type things, I think you have something good here. Visually, it still wouldn't touch the Jorgensen ad, but it might have something a little more.
And by Democratic operatives. Biden was forced to drop out of the 88 campaign, later admitting he lied about his activism, which he had used to bolster his campaign. No, Joe Biden wasn't in the streets, though he claimed to be. That's stolen valor. He was once described in Congress as being to the right of then President Ronald Reagan. in regard to the war on drugs
Oof.
and policies on policing. That's the real Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who said he had, quote, no sympathy for the plight of young people today. We are asking that you vote.
That's another case where when you have a quote by the person and it's on video, play the video. That's always what you should do. If you have somebody's words, you're going to use somebody's words against them, just play the video. You don't have to say it. Don't say, and I quote, no, just play the video. So many ads have failed to do that, and it drives me crazy because it hits so much harder when you have somebody's words. You can just throw them back at the person and play some ominous music in the background. It works so much better.
Your values. Vote for policies that are important for solving the enormous problems that face us as working class people. You know what those policies are. Joe Biden would be more of the same corporate conservatism and hawkishness we've seen from Democrats for decades. Let us take this movement forward together.
Yeah, so it went on a little long. The voiceover was not very good. It could have been a little bit more concise. Visually, it just didn't seem to match. It's generally a down. I get what he's trying to do, and there are adjustments that could be made to make this an effective attack ad on Joe Biden. If that's what you're going for, if you want to be the movement that holds the Democrats' feet to the fire, I think that's a totally valid thing to do. There's plenty of people who are sucking it up and voting for Joe. But say they're going to hold his feet to the fire afterwards. And if that's what this movement is really pushing for, then there is something almost effective about it. It's just not in a very good package, I would say. Yeah, I think there's potential in the concept. If this was like a rough draft of an ad, I would say, okay, we can make something out of this. But no, this is the ad. So it gets it down for me. And I want to like both the Libertarians and the Green Party. I walk into it thinking like I can at least identify with something on both of those sides, and I honestly believe that they are genuine and not at all cynical. I would at least like to think so. But yeah, this one didn't do it for me. Sorry, Howie. Not happening. All right, let's see what we got after these. The two main third parties that I think of. We're going to go into a couple more. Let's see what we got. All right, so here we have Rocky de la Fuente. He's lovingly known as Rocky. I learned about this guy because he was on my mail-in ballot. So I thought that was cool. I didn't know anything about this guy, so I thought, let's see what he has. And my mail-in ballot is a big part of how I found out about him and the next person we're going to be doing. So I'm excited about this. This one should be fun. I have high hopes. Already seeing this little still here, it looks like the production value is going to be a little better than the Green Party's. So we'll see.
Jobs, jobs, and more jobs. Jobs can be influenced by economic environments. We need to completely rebalance the relationship between regulation, taxation, and economic expansion.
Okay, this feels... I don't know, something about this doesn't even feel like a political commercial. I'm trying to think of what this is reminding me of. This feels like a commercial, but like he's trying to sell me something. I don't know. I already noticed a slight difference between the quality of the voiceover and the visuals, but it's not nearly as jarring as with the Green Party. And Rocky has... a clear accent here, which is going to make communication interesting. Sometimes it works, sometimes it adds a charm to it, but you want to make sure that the general American audience is going to be able to understand what you're saying. He seems to speak clearly enough, but I think it would help a little more if the recording was a little bit cleaner. I think that's definitely not helping. It feels like the mic's being blown out just a little bit, like it's peeking into the red a little.
So the private sector can create new jobs and attracts past ones that have since immigrated overseas. We need to push for federal legislation to create, repair, and replace infrastructure, benefiting the country as a whole and creating millions of new jobs. I am passionate about achieving the goal of making America an epicenter of renewable energy, research and development, reducing long-term energy costs, and helping to preserve our environment.
Okay, Rocky. And you resisted doing the I'm Roque de la Fuente and I approve this message, even though you had the shot for it, where you turn and look into the camera. You resisted. And I appreciate that. You did it right. You kind of gave both sides a little something there. It was not as issue heavy as the libertarian ad. Or the Green Party ad. It doesn't really hit either of those quite. Like, I understand what he wants to do, but I don't really have a strong understanding of how he wants to execute them, while the other two gave me a little bit more of an idea as to through what means he wanted to. Like, he talks about growing private sector jobs and bringing jobs back from overseas. That will speak to conservatives, and that is good. It'll speak to liberals too, but that is a very good issue to lean on with conservative workers. I think that's really good. And then we have the stuff about like renewable energy and stuff, and he's really looking to the future on that, and I think that's good as well. That voiceover, though, it really did bug me. The quality just wasn't very good. And for such a good-looking ad visually, it was so clean. That was a bit of a shame. But I think I'll give this a thumbs up. Not as enthusiastic of a thumbs up as I did with the Jorgensen one, because I think it was on message, but a little bit vague. I thought Jorgensen and Hawkins were very clear. This one, it gave us some ideas for some results, but I'm not getting a vibe as to I can't even tell if he's like liberal or conservative. I don't know where he would consider himself leaning. I'm not familiar with him. He just got onto my radar. That's why this is like probably the most authentic reaction I could probably give to one of these things, because with all the others I've at least got an idea of what they stand for going into this one. I had no idea. Yeah, but I'll give it a hesitant thumbs up. I think it's a solid ad. I don't know if it's gonna really turn a lot of heads though. It kind of leans in the boring direction. Like it kind of screams local political ad, where they don't really say a whole lot. They'll hit you with the key words, the things you want to hear, but you don't get a vibe as to how exactly they want to execute that stuff. It's a very local style, but it's good. All right, we got one more ad. Let's check it out. So this one is for Gloria La Riva, who is an unapologetic socialist. I have looked into her a little bit since I received my ballot, and she seems very interesting, very earnest. It was hard. I saw interviews with her. It was hard to find something that I was sure was a political ad. I believe this is one, but I don't think it I don't know if it aired anywhere or anything. It might just be an internet thing, but those are valid too. The internet is a perfectly valid medium to get your message out there, especially if you are doing a socialist message. I think you probably do want to go to the internet for that one. You probably want to speak to young people where they're at, and that's the internet. So let's see what La Riva has.
People are really receptive to the La Riva campaign, and it's sort of a breath of fresh air to hear an issue from a politician about something that really speaks to you.
Gloria La Riva is for the people. She's on the front line of the uprising that we saw going on in our country. She was down in Louisiana providing material support for folks who were affected in Lake Charles with the hurricane.
In our state of New Jersey, the unemployment rate as of August was 10.9%, with 1.4 million filings since the pandemic began. In the midst of all
So with this seeming to be made more for the internet, she doesn't have like she can go long, and the Howie Hawkins one went a little long. Once you start getting past the minute mark, it had better be engaging. This is more engaging than the Hawkins one so far. She's not spoken yet, and I think that's a good way to start a long ad. I don't think people just want to be lectured at for 2 minutes by the person who's running. I think they want to hear some other voices in there, and then you can come in maybe at the end. And I kind of like that as a format, especially for like an alternative sort of person's campaign.
Our elected officials see it fit to implement budget cuts. Governor Phil Murphy's revised budget proposal for fiscal year 2021 includes $1.25 billion in spending cuts, which includes cuts to Medicaid and school-based mental health services.
What has changed? Since Obama got in, what has changed? We still have these the trillion-dollar wars. Nothing has changed. Has our healthcare system changed? No.
So this is naturally going to be something that gets like the Democratic voters kind of working against them a little here. But at the same time, they're trying to appeal to the Democratic voters. It's interesting because the Democratic Party is generally a little bit more to the center than the socialists would want them to be. But there are plenty of people who are, like I said earlier, way further to the left than Joe Biden who are going to be voting for Joe Biden. And that's what makes Joe Biden such an obstacle to the growth of a movement like this. So it's very natural, honestly, that they would go after the Democrats. And having this guy say nothing's changed since Obama, that's actually a very good selling point here, because that's kind of why it seems Trump got elected. People were not happy with the change that Obama promised because it never came. He had this like revolutionary rhetoric on the campaign trail. Then he evolved into this serious incrementalist. And people were not satisfied with that. That's why we have so many two-time Obama voters who flipped and voted for Trump. I don't think we're getting as much of that this time with Biden being on the ticket. I think he's going to get a lot of them back. But I get the rationale here.
Has housing changed? Has education changed? No, and you see all of these things get gutted year after year. These corporations make record profits during pandemics, during economic crises. They always flourish, and we're always left out to dry.
Honestly, I think you should have led with this guy. I thought the other thing was cool, but like, he's a powerful speaker as far as just, like, if he's just somebody you found on the street, good. Like, speaks very well, very powerful on message, and if that's who you want speaking for you, it's good. And it kind of takes a little bit from the Jorgensen thing, where you have these strong testimonials, but this feels a little bit more raw because you got somebody on the street doing it. It feels like you're in the weeds here, you're working through it in a more personal way, and that's kind of the presentation that this campaign seems to be going for, and I like that. I like that on the ground presentation.
People here work hard. They grind. They struggle. I got 2 jobs. I work overtime almost every week. I'm doing 20, 30 hours of overtime just to survive. So capitalism is disgusting. It's wrong. It creates a survival of the fittest mentality.
I want to really congratulate everyone.
So this is Gloria. So she's finally coming in, and we're in like the last 30 seconds here. That guy, and of course, when you're talking down about capitalism and really proudly wearing the socialist label, it's gonna be difficult. It's not going to immediately be receptive to the American people. This is a long game to normalizing the concept of socialism. But if you are playing the long game, trying to normalize it, you got to speak a little bit more aggressively about it. And I kind of appreciate that. And so let's see what Gloria has to say. She's very soft-spoken. I like that she led with other people because she's soft-spoken. She has a lisp. She would not be the strongest voiceover, but she has a very earnest approach to her. And I think that's good in like a more intimate interview environment. I think that plays much better than in a political ad where you want something a little bit more booming. I think these two guys they had speaking here back to back were very good at communicating the frustration of people that Gloria seems to want to, I guess, play to.
It creates a survival of the fittest mentality.
I want to really congratulate everybody in New Jersey who spent weeks to get us on the ballot in order for the people to have a real alternative in these elections. But it also shows how many people were open to seeing an alternative and did not buy the idea that you can only vote for one extremely rich candidate versus another extremely rich candidate who are both for a system that makes the rich ultra rich while the people are suffering day by day.
Okay, so that was pretty good. I don't know. I don't think it beats the Jorgensen one, but I would love to see kind of like a back and forth between those two, because I do see I would like to have like a genuine socialist and a genuine libertarian, because at least I feel there's consistent ideology there. I can work with that. I get what you mean. I understand there are a lot of gray areas, and libertarians exist on a sort of spectrum. Last time around, Gary Johnson, he wasn't a pure libertarian. He had some exceptions, and I think you'll find plenty of socialists who believe in the free market to a point. I think most people exist on a gray scale, but I think it's so interesting seeing these very consistent ideologies here, because people can identify with that. Clearly not enough to get them elected, but I think the Gloria ad gets a thumbs up as well. I liked these ads. The Kanye one was awful, and the Howie Hawkins one just didn't feel well put together or well communicated, while it seemed to be well-meaning. It's not the best use of... I guess I've seen better ads that seem to have comparable budgets. I'll just say that much. I don't think it was the best approach for the Green Party candidate and like the image that they have. I think they could have gone for something a little bit more concise, a little bit more personal, a little bit more like what Gloria did, which I thought was pretty good. Yeah, I liked these ads. We got 3 out of 5 being actually pretty solid ads. The Rocky one is kind of borderline. It's a little good. It's not exciting by any means, but we got 2 good ads, one a little bit more conservative, one a little bit more liberal, and we got 2 not so good ads, one a little bit more conservative and one a little bit more liberal, and we have just this middling ad. I like that balance. I think that worked out well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This one was interesting. I need more bad ads next time we do this, but that's probably not going to be for a while. I think I'm done for this election season, but who knows? Maybe you'll see another bad ad review if something really bad comes out sometime soon. If you see anything, send it my way. I'm on Twitter or whatever. Thank you for watching. Like this video if you like this video. Subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time. Later.